Voyage.
Having left Hawaii, Cameron, Hiroki, and Charlie are now sailing across the Pacific Ocean, headed for Japan, a distance of 4,000 miles. Cameron has planned and provisioned for the trip to last between 25 and 28 days, allowing enough time for him to get his footing once in Yokosuka, Japan, before his new assignment as Submarine Group 7 begins.
When you sail to Japan from Hawaii, you don't actually go in a straight line. So in order to optimize the wind and the currents, you leave Hawaii and you actually go southwest. You go down there so that you get the strongest trade winds and the current going in the same direction that you want to go. You'll then ride that for as long as you can until you have to finally turn northwest to get up to Japan. When you make that turn is crucial because there's something called the North Pacific High, which is the doldrums. So inside the doldrums, there's no current to take you anywhere. There's no wind to take you anywhere. If you're caught in there in a sailboat with a motor that's not working or out of gas, you're just stuck. So the plan is you know that there's one point of the North Pacific High that you're gonna cut through, and that high kind of drifts around a little bit, so it's not always in the same place. So the plan was leave Hawaii, go southwest, get the strong winds and currents, come up, and then we were not going to use any fuel at all until we reached the doldrums. When we crossed through the North Pacific High, that's when we were going to use the gas that we had on board, and we were going to, motor through that section. And then when you get through that section, now you've got good wind and currents off of Japan that they kind of take you the rest of the way. So that's kind of the overall strategy.
With his former floating condominium now out on open water, Cameron once again finds his body struggling to adjust to life at sea, much to the surprise of his new crewmates.
In the winter, the waves off Hawaii get fairly big. And so we're out there and the waves are big. And I've been on a submarine, which rocks and rolls one way, but my boat has not been out in a long time because I've been, trying to get it ready. Literally the first day, I start throwing up. And I'm just puking my guts out. And Charlie and Hiroki are looking at me like, dude, I thought you were in the Navy. Like, why are you throwing up? So the first 3 days, I puked. And I knew that I was going to get over it. I knew that, it's a different rocking and rolling. I got to get used to it. But, oh, man, it's like the worst feeling in the world. And there's no escaping it.
As Cameron once again finds his sea legs, the three men begin working to try and establish something of a daily routine aboard the boat.
Once a day, around 4:30 Hawaii time, we would get out the GPS, turn it on, get our location, and plot it on the chart. Then we would turn on the single sideband radio to the weather station. And so we would get kind of a broadcast, an idea of where the weather systems were at around us. And then we would plot out what we were going to do over the next 24 hours, kind of what our course was going to be, how we were going to do things. And then at 5, that's when we turned to the station where we would talk to a guy that was in Hawaii. And so there was really kind of a network. There was one guy in Hawaii, and there were a couple of other boats that were sailing, kind of around Hawaii to Palau and kind of in that area. And we could kind of hear some of their stuff. So we would pass our position. We would give an update of, the weather, like this is what the weather is, at this position. We would update what's going on with the boat. Do we have any mechanical problems? Do we have any navigation problems? What's the health of the crew? How's everybody doing? And then we would listen as other boats that were out there would kind of report the same thing. And we would note where they were at too, so that if somebody needed us or if we needed somebody, we'd have a general idea.
While it's Cameron's boat, he is cognizant enough of Charlie's age and experience to try and utilize him in establishing the basic routine and ground rules.
Yeah, I think Charlie overestimated me. I'll be honest with you. I think if he knew who I was and what my boat was, he would have not flown from Poland. I mean, he knows that I'm a naval officer, but I mean, navigating a U.S. nuclear submarine and sailing a 32-foot sailboat are so different.
Nonetheless, Cameron applies as much of what he's learned in the Navy as possible to the voyage.
On the submarine, we do 6-hour shifts. And so that means in a given, there's 4 shifts in a day. And so I again, it's one of these things, like I'm just going to take all the submarine stuff and translate it to a small sailboat. And Charlie was like, nah, man, that's a bad idea. And I was like, why? And he's like, well, because Hiroki's going to be driving at night if we do that. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. That's a bad idea. So initially we did 12-hour shifts. So I drove for 12 hours, and then Charlie drove for 12 hours. And basically we had Charlie driving during the day, and we had me driving at night. And then we had Hiroki was working like an overlap shift. So Hiroki would work, 6 hours on with Charlie, and then he'd work 6 hours on with me, and then he'd be off. And so this is the way that we were trying to teach Hiroki how to sail.
Teaching Hiroki to sail is more difficult a task than either Cameron or Charlie are prepared for, as the 12-hour shifts prove to be too daunting, and they soon divide, driving up into regular, more manageable 8-hour shifts.
I took the night shift, and then Hiroki would wake up and take the day shift, and then Charlie would take the evening shift. And this is how we were going to kind of do our shifts. And relatively soon, it was almost immediately apparent that like Hiroki was not really paying much attention to driving the ship. Hiroki never bothered to change the course of the boat. If the wind shifted and started blowing the boat off course, then he would just let it go off course. And so every day we would plot our position, and we're like, man, like, we're off. This is not where we thought we would be. He kept an eye out. He made sure we didn't bump into things. But we would have to constantly, even on our off time, kind of go up, hang out with him. Like, hey, Hiroki, how's it going? And we'd check the compass, make sure the boat's going in the right direction. If not, we'd adjust the wind vane, and then kind of go back below.
Hiroki's free-spirited nature continues to create tension between the men with regard to safety protocol.
I had a rule that if you're on deck by yourself, you have to have a harness on. And the harness basically ties you to the boat. And the reason why is the boat is self-steering. So on a sailboat that doesn't have self-steering, if you fall off, the boat will actually turn upwind and stop. And you'll probably be able to swim back to it. Maybe. But a boat that has self-steering, if you fall off, the boat's just going to keep going, and you're just going to be in the ocean. And it doesn't take any time at all. I mean, literally within 15 minutes, you are such a tiny little dot in the ocean that no one would ever find you. Countless times we would come up, and Hiroki would be walking around. He'd be up on the bow, kind of hanging out, looking around, and he wouldn't have his harness on. And they're like, hey, Hiroki, you got to put your harness on. And he'd like, oh, yeah. And he'd reluctantly, hook it on. And you're like, dude, this is important. You will die. And he's like, oh, okay. And then literally the very next day, Charlie would grab me and be like, Hiroki doesn't have his harness on again.
With Charlie naturally occupying the role of a stoic, salty dog father figure, Cameron finds himself increasingly forced into taking on a big brother role in an effort to keep Hiroki on task. But further friction arises as a result of some of the decisions, or in hindsight mistakes, made by Cameron himself.
I made the mistake of asking a buddy of mine who's a Navy SEAL, hey man, what should I buy for food? And this guy was a legit sailor. He sailed from San Diego to Hawaii, so I'm like, he knows. He's like, man, all you need is oatmeal. He's like, you can live off of oatmeal for months. It's got plenty of nutrition. No matter how rough the seas get, you can always make oatmeal. No matter how seasick you get, you can always hold down oatmeal. It never makes you sick. It's perfect. And so I bought enough oatmeal for us to eat oatmeal every day. It turns out if you're not a Navy SEAL, living off of oatmeal for weeks is horrible. Absolutely horrible. Dinner would consist usually of, early on it would consist of rice or pasta.
Charlie was easily the best cook of the three, capable of turning a can of tuna and some rice into the nautical equivalent of a gourmet meal. But the lack of options quickly takes a toll on the trio's morale.
I never really cooked before, and so I thought rice expanded way more than it did. And so, it turns out we didn't have nearly as much rice as I thought. And pasta, turns out, doesn't expand at all. So, you just got what you got. And so as we started running lower and lower on food, it became more oatmeal and something, even for dinner. Now, if you wanted breakfast, you cooked breakfast yourself, and the only thing that was available was oatmeal. And if you cooked lunch for yourself, the only thing that was available was oatmeal. That was it. So there was a little friction toward me about doing a really bad job of buying food. But I did have some other stuff. I had some canned meat, like canned ham, and I had some canned fruits. Sunday was our celebration day. So every Sunday, we would open up a canned ham and some canned fruit and just have a huge meal. I had a couple of little treats and stuff, like maybe some Twix bars or Oreo cookies or whatever. But Hiroki was a prolific snacker. Hiroki was always hungry.
Needless to say, the Twix and Oreos did not last long. But as much as Hiroki made his displeasure over the way Cameron had provisioned the boat known, Cameron and Charlie would in turn grow irked over Hiroki's seemingly bottomless appetite.
I brought one jar of peanut butter. And we're several days in, and I said, "Hey guys, I've got some peanut butter. Why don't we do some peanut butter crackers as a dessert?" And I go to get the peanut butter, and it's gone. The jar's there, so it's like, okay, I did pack a jar of peanut butter. There it is. It is nearly scraped, completely clean. And I'm like, "Dude, I didn't even open this." And Charlie, straight up honest guy, I didn't open it. Hiroki's like, "Well, I ate a little bit of peanut butter."
But if the guys thought the food situation was bad,
the way I had done the water was, the boat has a water tank, but I had read that, if that tank gets a hole in it, or if something gets into that water and all of your water is there, you're in trouble. So I had water in the ship's water tank, but I also had, the majority of the water was in these 5-gallon jugs. And I had the 5-gallon jugs stored all over the boat. And a lot of them were stored on the top of the boat, kind of tied to things on the top. And this was a brilliant idea, I thought, because, if I lose one, it's just 5 gallons. I still got all the rest of my water supply. Plenty of water for 3 guys for, 30 days. That's the longest we'll be out here is 30 days. I got plenty of water for 30 days. So then one day, I open up one of the water tanks, and man, the water just tasted horrible. And I'm like, well, this is a bad jug. Close that jug off. We'll put that to the side. I get another jug out. Oh, that water tastes horrible too. And now I realize that these plastic jugs that I had bought to put the water in, the sunlight was doing something that was kind of leaching the plastic into the water. So the water tasted like plastic. And I'm like, well, guys, I said, we better drink this water first. We'll drink all the water that's topside first, and then we'll save the other water. And every day it became less and less drinkable. And I'm looking and I'm like, oh, without these jugs, we don't have enough water.
As the saying goes, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. But while Cameron did not have the lemons, what he did have was a can of powdered mix in order to make lemonade.
And so I was like, that's all right. So what we're going to do is we'll cook with it and we'll make lemonade with it. And we get. So then the days go on, and now, I mean, you have to put so much lemonade in the water to make it drinkable that it's almost too much lemonade. It was so I'm like, this is trouble.
Despite their food and water woes, the sea occasionally did provide.
We were really running low on the good food, and it was really mostly oatmeal, and morale was like in the dumps. All of a sudden, the lure takes off. There's a fish on, and so we're trying to reel it, like, don't break the line, So we don't know what we're doing, and we pull him up, and he's a yellowfin tuna that's probably as big as my torso. He is. Let me tell you, it's a she. She is huge. And Hiroki opens up the fish and there's eggs, and he's like, oh, this is caviar basically, but he's like, there's a name for it in Japanese. Like, this is really special. Like, we get to eat the eggs. And so Hiroki makes the first cuts. He brings the eggs out and we eat those, and he gives us a couple of slices of sashimi. So raw fish. He's like, oh, this is the best part of the fish, to eat raw. And then after we've done that, there's still a lot of fish left. And so Charlie's like, well, we got to cook it. Charlie's the best cook. So Charlie cooked some of the fish and I cooked some of the fish. If I had been a smart man, I would have let Charlie cook the whole fish. But I mean, this is a big yellowfin tuna, but I don't have a refrigerator. So there's no way to store this fish. So we have to eat it. And so, as the night goes on, the day goes on, we eat more fish. And as the night goes on, we're eating more fish. And it was the first time I had ever seen Hiroki full. Like, he actually got to a point where he was like, I can't eat anymore. We didn't fish for a long time after that.
When the men weren't sailing or eating, there was certainly time to kill out on the open ocean. Miles from civilization, a chance to get to know each other better and let any ruffled feathers settle.
I'd like to raise a glass of this god-awful tasting water in honor of today, March 12, 1999, and Poland officially joining NATO. Here's to you, Charlie. Proud to call you an ally and a crew member.
Thank you. It is a long time coming.
How do you say cheers in Polish?
Twoje zdrowie.
Twoje zdrowie.
Na zdrowie.
Oh, man. That is rough. I know I've said it before, but I'm really sorry about the water situation, guys. Gonna have to start using more lemonade mix, or maybe start distilling our own urine.
We should drink the whiskey to celebrate.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like we should save it, at least until we get to Japan. Since it was a gift and all, I just feel like it'd be bad luck or something.
We have already had bad luck without even opening the bottle.
Hey, come on, man. We made it this far, right? We're still here, still on course, maybe a little behind schedule. It's all on how you look at things. Me, I'm a glass half full kind of guy.
I wish my glass was half full of whiskey and not plastic lemon water.
It's all just a matter of perspective, Hiroki. See, some people would say a guy like me, who gets seasick pretty much every time he steps on board a boat, maybe shouldn't be living and working on boats. But here I am, doing it, right? And now some people might hear all that squawking and hollering up there on deck at 0800 while they're trying to get a little shut-eye and call it singing, but that's where me and Charlie here beg to differ.
Psst. I sing great.
You sing loud.
Let us hear you sing.
I cannot sing.
Ah, see? Then what do you know?
I know when you sing, all the birds and dolphins disappear.
So, what are we doing for entertainment tonight, gentlemen? Movie? Cards? A little backgammon?
Waves are too big for backgammon. Remember last time?
Movie only if it will make me laugh. No more disasters at sea. I have bad dreams.
I could read us another chapter from Les Mis.
Boring. Dominoes.
That's an idea. Maybe we should do a domino tournament, and the grand prize can be the last candy bar.
What happened to the others?
Let's see, there's 12 candy bars to a box, and I bought 2 boxes, so either we got a stowaway mouse with a sweet tooth on board, or I'd say someone's been going to town on the candy bars. Now for me, I know I've had precisely 2 candy bars.
I have eaten no candy bars.
I may have eaten some candy bars.
I tell you what, my friend, here's your chance to score the last one. Set 'em up. You guys go first. I'll take the wheel a while, then play the winner.
The easiest way to get along is just to get along. And you know, I knew from being on the submarine, you know, people do things, they annoy you. That's fine. They're just gonna annoy you. You just gotta let it go. You know what I mean? You can't let it. You can't make a deal out of it. You know, that was the general day-to-day rhythm.
While the men could learn to make do when it came to food and beverage, Mother Nature was another force altogether. As mentioned earlier, a key part of their plan was to sail through the first leg of the journey with the aid of the notoriously strong southern trade winds in order to conserve diesel fuel for the doldrums that lie ahead. But, not for the last time, Cameron, Charlie, and Hiroki would discover that nature had other plans.
We go down there and there is no wind. I mean, there are hours and days where there's not enough wind to steer the boat. The boat is literally just drifting. And the sails, there's this sound they make. It's kind of, a little breeze will come up and they'll go whop as they fill with wind, and then they go whoop as they go limp. And then the halyards rattle, so it's like a whop, whoop, rattle, 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 whop, whoop, rattle, rattle, rattle. And there's not even enough wind to steer the boat. Not even enough wind. The boat's just kind of like drifted. And it is hot. I mean, hot. I wrote in my journal that I felt like I was an ant, and the heat was an elephant, and it would come every morning and sit on me and just suffocate me with its weight and its, you know, humidity, and it wouldn't leave until midnight. So the problem is, if we use gas here when we expect to have wind, when we get to the doldrums, we'll be out of gas and we'll never make it out of there. We'll be like the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. We'll just be stuck at sea. Although I felt like that. I did feel like that poem kept coming back to me. I felt like I was an idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. You know, water everywhere and nowhere any drop to drink. Because it was hot. And so what you would do is we had a bucket tied to a rope, and you throw that overboard and you scoop up seawater and dump it on you. And that's how you would cool off. And in 15 minutes, you would just be salt crusted and dry again. So you dump another bucket of water on you.
Cameron continues to feel the stress mounting on his shoulders as the continued lack of wind begins to create a ripple effect aboard the Lilino.
The other problem we had was we needed to charge the batteries in order to turn the navigation lights on and get on the radio. And so without enough wind to properly sail, we would have to turn the motor on every day. We would make a little progress. We'd turn the motor on. We'd motor for a while and charge the batteries up and then turn the motor off. But after doing this, you know, more and more, I started thinking, oh my God, we're going to run out of gas when we're in the doldrums. So this is another problem.
But all of these issues pale in comparison to a problem that suddenly arises with the sails.
With the wind being so light, you know, the sails are kind of flopping from side to side. At one point, the sail gets caught on it's called a spreader. It's this thing that's up the mast that kind of comes out a little bit to keep the shrouds out. The sail gets caught on it. And so now the sail's caught on it. We, you know, can't get the sail up, can't get the sail down, can't move the sail. Like this is a problem. And so the only way to fix it is to climb up the mast. And I'm scared of heights. So it's about up to where this part is. It's probably, 45 feet off the deck. And so, I had read some books. I was ready for this thing. I had like what's called a bosun's chair. But I had the bosun's chair that came with the boat. And it was basically a 2x4 with 2 holes drilled in it and rope going through it with knots on the other side. And, when I was like going through my checklist, it looked great. But now that I'm about to sit in this thing and go up the mast, it does not look great. I mean, it looks very shoddy. Like, this is, a wooden plank from 1970 something that's been on the boat for 20 something years in a wet environment. I'm like, oh my God, like this thing is going to break and I'm going to die. But I'm like, it's my boat. I got to do it. I got to be the one to go up. They start pulling me up the mast. And the waves are about probably 5 to 6 feet tall, which doesn't sound that big. It's not really that big. But when you're going up the mast on a 32-foot boat, those waves start to become huge. And the boat is swinging from side to side. And so, the farther you go up the mast, then the farther you swing on each swing. And not only that, but like my weight is unsettling the boat and is also making it sway further and further on each time that it rocks. So now I'm up on top of the mast and the boat is, swaying from side to side. And when I look down, like I am literally like, there are times when I look down and I'm not over the boat. The part of the mast that I'm on is over the ocean. And then I look and now I'm over the ocean on the other side of the boat. I'm like, I just want to hold on, but I have to like fix this thing. I'm up on the mast to fix something, but I am like scared to death to let go. And because I thought my other fear is that if I lose my grip and I start swinging, now like I am going to be swinging and I'm going to like slam into this mast. I'm going to be like one of those little balls, that you swing and it hits the other ball and it goes. I'm like, that's gonna be me. So I'm up there. I'm scared to death. I'm like, getting the sail undone. And I get it undone, and now I have to fix the thing that it's caught on, and so I'm tying that thing down, and I finally kind of get into a groove where I'm concentrated on what I need to do, to get down. From when I got there to when I actually started the task was probably a good 2 or 3 minutes as I just sat there like, oh my God, this is horrible. So I get it done. Literally, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I survived that.
Cameron emerges triumphant from this incident, but it's not long before the Lilino and her crew come up against their greatest challenge yet.
Off in the distance, I see the thunderstorm. And it's thundering and lightning. And, rain. And I was like, oh my God, like, we haven't seen anything like that, since we left Hawaii. Like, that's crazy. And then the winds start picking up. And it's like, oh my God, we got all the big sails up. We got every sail up. We got all the biggest sails up. And it's about to get stormy. And we need to have the little sails up. And so we got to take everything down and put everything back up. All of a sudden, I realized that Hiroki, who basically is not scared by anything, the first flash of lightning, and that kid runs below. And that's it. He is gone. And didn't say nothing, just like, lightning, he's gone. And we're like, what? And we go down, and we're like, hey, Hiroki, and he's like, nope, it's lightning. I'm not coming up. I'm not going to get struck by lightning. And we're like, well, you'll be okay. No, I'm not coming up in the lightning.
Charlie's skills navigating the notoriously rugged waters of the North Atlantic come into play as lightning splits the sky, wind tears at the sails, and rain lashes the 32-foot boat. It's like nothing Cameron has ever experienced.
I thought it was a pretty rough storm. And I remember thinking like, wow, man, this is like legit sailing. Charlie looks over at me when it's done, and he's like, that was good practice for when it gets bad. And I thought, oh, that wasn't bad? And so of course I'm like, trying to play it cool, like, oh yeah, when it gets, that's good practice for when it gets bad. Uh-oh. So now I'm like, oh man, this guy's really seen some storms. If he thought this thing was minor, so I'm glad I brought him. He's the right guy.
With Cameron having had his moment to shine during the incident with the spreader, the storm is most definitely Charlie's. But it's not long before another treacherous situation arises, and its solution comes at the hands of a most unexpected hero.
The motor suddenly just whoom, and oh god, that's bad. So we cut it off and we're trying to figure out what's going on. The motor looks fine, everything looks good, and we look behind the boat and we're trailing this fishing net. And again, at the time, I was like, well, my boat, this is another dangerous thing we have to do. Somebody has to jump off and cut the fishing net off the boat. And so we tie a rope around me so that I don't drift away. And I jump off the boat. And when I try to grab, the propeller's going up and down and up and down. And, the whole boat's going up and down. So I dive down underwater, and now the propeller's still going, up and down. And I grab hold of it, and now, it's pulling me up and down. And I'm, trying to, cut this net off the propeller while being pulled. And literally, it was so exhausting. And I come up, and I'm like, wow, that was hard. I try it again. And, this propeller is sharp and metal, and it's moving up and down at a high rate of speed. And if it hits me in the head, nobody's coming to get us. And so I'm trying, and I can't get it, and I'm getting more and more exhausted. And finally, I come out, and I'm exhausted. I climb back up on the boat, and I'm looking at Charlie. I don't know if I can do this, man. This is gonna take it. This is gonna take us a while. We might have to wait until the seas calm down. We might be stuck here. And Hiroki's like, I got it. This is probably at Hiroki's. This is probably his lowest point, right? He's eaten all the food. He's done a horrible job at driving the ship. Literally, it's to the point where Charlie and I aren't even considering Hiroki as the guy that's gonna save us. And man, that dude grabs the rope, ties the rope around his waist, dives in, and unbelievable. He's down there for an amount of time that's scary. You're starting to think is he okay? Should we? And then he comes up and he's got all this net that he's cut off, and he throws that up on deck, and he goes back, and that was a significant feat of athleticism and bravery, because it was scary. My propeller is deep underwater. You gotta go down a couple of feet underwater before you get to where the propeller is, and it's actually kind of the rudder's in front of the propeller. So there's a lot of sailboat that's moving up and down at a relative high rate of speed that you're trying to navigate to cut this stuff off. And we looked at him very different after that. It was like, wow, okay, if it comes to some tough stuff, this guy can do it. He can do it. Yeah, he absolutely saved the day.
But while the three men revel in their ability to communicate effectively despite the language barriers between them, and lean on their individual strengths to overcome life-threatening challenges, in private, Cameron grows increasingly concerned about a problem that looms ever closer, one he's been cognizant of since day one.
Now, as I looked at the route, I planned a couple of places that were going to be emergency stopping points. So I got navigation charts for Wake Island, Bikini Atoll, Iwo Jima, and those were our spots. So Wake Island is the closest of all of them. So it's a pretty big sail to get to Bikini Atoll, and it's a pretty big diversion to get to Iwo Jima. But Wake Island was pretty close to our route, and it was becoming really clear that we were going to have to stop at Wake Island. Wake Island was also our biggest problem because it was a U.S. military base. The whole island's a military base. And I had 2 foreign nationals on the boat. And there was no guarantee that Wake Island was going to let us stay. And I start thinking, like, oh my God, what if Wake Island is one of those like exclusion zones where, they're doing, super secret research on, missile defense or something else. And what if it's like, Missile Defense Day and, we can't get in? I was like, oh God. So all of these, thoughts and worries, start going through my head.
Prior to setting sail, Cameron considered contacting Wake Island, but figured rather than potentially being told no, it was a bridge he'd cross if necessary. Furthermore, in his mind, there'd be no need to stop. They'd most certainly be close to reaching their destination by this point in the journey. However,
well, now we're 25 days in. The food is low. The water's going bad. We've got to stop. We've got to stop. And now it's really bothering me. Like, oh my God, Charlie is Polish. And, Poland is a former Warsaw Pact country. I mean, that's basically like saying, this is the enemy. Hey, can I bring a, U.S. adversary onto a U.S. military base? And I'm thinking like, oh my God, the answer is going to be no. So, but I didn't want to tell Hiroki and Charlie that they might turn us away because, I didn't want to break their spirit. I mean, morale's low. And I remember, like, as we're approaching Wake Island and you can start to see it on the distance, it was a rough day. We're, bouncing and bobbing and everything. And, trying to call him up on the radio and, like, no answer. I try to call him again, no answer. And then the other thought that started coming into my head is, this might not be an active base anymore. I mean, I was so worried.
we will learn what Wake Island has in store for the trio. Indeed, if they'll even be allowed to land there. Plus the return of Mother Nature with a vengeance. All in our next episode.